Welcome to the Unshakeable Talks with me, Katy. This is where we talk about the unshakable women behind the businesses. We are lifting the lid on what it really takes to run a business, to scale a business, to get into business, while also creating a life you love. On the Unshakeable Talks, we are all about talking about the conversations everyone is scared to talk about. We are really lifting the lid on what it really takes to become unshakable within business and life. On today's episode of the Unshakeable Talks, I'm talking to Lauren, and Lauren is helping solopreneur women to build a business which works around their life first. She's specialized in helping them create one core offer which will take them to multiple six figures, and the beautiful part about this is she is helping them to structure their business and create their business so they can still live a full life through every season within their life. Okay. Welcome to the Unshakeable Talk, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you because we've recently met. Yes. So I don't actually know a lot about you before we had the conversation. But what I find extremely inspiring is that and I know you don't mind me saying, at your young age, what you have achieved.
Yeah.
But before we get to this, I would like to go back to Lauren, let's say 6 years ago. Who was Lauren then, and what made you do what you do now? What was your journey?
Yeah, thank you so much. So 6 years ago, honestly, my life was completely different. It would have been 2020, so pandemic time. I had just graduated in the pandemic as well. So we had our last lecture and kind of said goodbye, and it was cancelled after that. Finished the degree from home. At the same time, I'd always wanted to really work for myself. I'd done a lot of coaching through my degree as well, really fell in love with coaching and everything business, had always wanted to try working for myself. So I figured, well, we were in a global pandemic, we might as well go for it. So gave it a shot, really went after that and started building this. And then just a couple months into really starting to even build the business, I hadn't sent any clients yet. My granddad got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it really just shifted my priorities, obviously rightly so, very much overnight because it was really out of the blue. And I really was in a position where I was kind of considering, do I still want to be building the business? Do I still want to focus on that right now? Or do I want to kind of put pause on this and take time off and really be with family and, pick this up in a year maybe? And I was really going back and forth on that decision. And I remember one moment where my granddad had been at a chemotherapy appointment and he'd listened to, ironically, a podcast recording, which I'd done, which was a small one over Zoom at the time. But I remember him listening to that, and he came back and said just how proud he was of me and just how much it really, helped him really get through the chemotherapy. And I remember thinking in that moment, okay, I need to make both of these things work. I don't know how I'm going to make both of them work, but we need to make both of these things work. Because I couldn't really bear the thought of, my granddad passing away and not really seeing, what I could actually achieve with this. And I love the idea of just being able to, make both of these things work. So I really built this business for the entirety of the first year because, bless him, he lived for another 7 months after that. But I really, for the first year of my business, built this in 1 hour a day, and it was absolutely crazy. And, on paper, it doesn't make sense, but I was so focused with where my time was going and being intentional and strategic with just every single minute that I was putting into this business. And I was able to grow this and sign multiple clients during that first year on literally 1 hour a day and really learn how to balance life and business. And then that's kind of carried me throughout my whole business journey now, really.
So let's rewind a little bit because what you actually have shared here and what you've done is something very unusual, especially for someone who's just finished university.
Yeah.
And I say this because I have a daughter who's about to finish university and she's extremely driven. So, but it's not, when something hits you like this sad time with your granddad, anyone, doesn't matter what age, what stage you're in life, I would like to say most people would pack it in.
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't got an established business already. Most people would pack it in. Most people would say, I can't do this right now. I need to be with my family. Like you said, you had the same thought processes. But what do you think? What part of you made you make the decision you did and concentrating on both of it? Was it because you wanted to make your granddad proud and because he said that about your podcast? Was it a distraction because obviously that gave you the focus, a different focus? Or what do you think was it for you?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of everything. So I think there was definitely that piece of, yes, it is, almost a nice distraction, being able to step away from being really, we were his full-time carers essentially, and being able to really step away from that. That was kind of a nice distraction. And also I think there was this huge part of me that's always just been life is short, like I really need to just go for this. And I think especially that just reinforced that for me of, my very healthy granddad suddenly being told you have 4 weeks to live, completely out of the blue. I think really reinforced the idea of life is so short. And obviously at this age I was, 21 at the time, which obviously hopefully have a long time left. But I think it really reinforced that belief for me of life is really short, and I kind of need to take these opportunities when they're coming. I could see that I have this opportunity, I have this time, and I've started building this thing, and I can kind of taste the potential of what this could be. And really, for the first time being outside of the education system, kind of having that free reign to create what I wanted and just kind of do anything and go in any direction. For the first time, I really was just in the mindset of I need to take this opportunity and I need to see what could happen with this.
I think that's incredibly inspiring. Because like I said, it has nothing to do really with your age. It's just most people would just give up, would direct their focus on the family situation. So well done for this.
Thank you. Yeah.
But it also made you create your business for what it is, isn't it? Because you are helping women to create lifestyle first businesses. You're helping women to create businesses or structure the businesses the way that they can actually live their life for every season in their life. And tell me a little bit about this, because I know you had about an hour each time usually when you started off building your business in your granddad's nap time.
Yeah, I think it's really, it's one of those things that every single one of us, the one thing we all have in common as we're building businesses is life is going to hit us at some point, whether through a really good thing, like, I am becoming a mum and I want to take time off to, be with my newborn, whether it is I'm going on a vacation, whether it is a family illness, whether it is sickness, life is going to hit you at some point, and your business needs to be prepared for that. And I think it's really hard when we're in this position where when life things are happening to us, then the business also feels like another thing that I need to worry about, because that would have been, really difficult if, for example, when my granddad was sick, if I had needed to worry about the business and feeling like I couldn't make this work and I needed to suddenly have an extra thing on my mind that I was panicking and worrying about and concerned about. But actually, if you can build a business that is really sustainable through all seasons of life, that is what actually allows you to, still be here in 10 years time and make this really a career through every single season and just being sustainable through every part of life as well. Because I think it's always, we know it's going to hit us at some point, something is. And for me right now, that looks like being able to travel a lot. And I travel every single month with my boyfriend, and we're constantly hopping around different countries, and I've been able to do that now, and that's now what the freedom side looks like for me. But obviously, back then it was really spending time with family, but I was able to do both of those through the same kind of method of really building a simple business.
You said we all know it's going to hit us at some point. I have to disagree.
Oh yeah.
And I'll tell you why, because I was running a very successful business.
Yeah.
I have done all the things you're supposed to be doing. I have achieved all the things you're supposed to be achieving. And life hit me, and I didn't know that this was coming. And when I was building my business from the ground up, I never, ever at any point had a thought thinking to prepare for life to hit.
Yeah.
Never, ever. And I was older than you, a little bit older than you. I was about 27 when I started my first business, but I was a mum already. I had a 4-year-old, and my focus was on strategy, on building the business, the revenue, and all of those things, obviously, which we have to concentrate on in building a business. But I have never thought about that life could throw a pile of at me, which could influence my business. And this is exactly what happened to me, because my business, there was the first time where I realized I was my business. My business couldn't function without me in it. So when I had to actually take the foot off the pedal of my business, things started to crumble and really become really obvious. So I think what you're doing is absolutely needed, and it's amazing. But I must disagree with that. The fact that people think like this? Because I actually don't think they do.
Yeah, I think there's so many people who, as you said, I think there's some areas of life we can kind of predict and expect a bit more. So for example, if, you know, you're planning to have kids, you can kind of plan for this and plan for, okay, I'm going to be taking these months off. So we can plan how's the business going to look, how are we going to serve the clients. But as you said, when you are a solopreneur, when you are the business and the business is reliant on you being there, it becomes really difficult suddenly. And again, especially when life does just hit you suddenly out of the blue with something that you couldn't have planned, you couldn't have expected, it becomes really hard to think, how do I take myself out of this business? And also the business doesn't just fall apart without me being there. And I think it's, as you said, like a conversation which, yes, we can expect some of those things, but also some of those things are really unexpected. And I think it's so easy for us to almost fall into the short-term trap of being so focused on, okay, the next few months, what am I building right now? What's going to get me results right now? And almost not preparing for this thing and kind of ending up, you know, crossing our fingers almost that just it doesn't happen when it probably will at some point. If we're going to be, you know, having a 30-year plus career in this, it's going to happen at some point.
Something is happening.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to actually have that conversation and just be prepared, especially as a solopreneur when you don't have this big team that can just absorb everything for you. And it is just, you are the business. You need to make sure that actually you can still show up in a way and the business can still function at least without you being in it 24/7.
So you mentioned the word solopreneur, and I know you're focused, this is your target audience and that's what you're focusing on. Tell me a bit about the clients you're working with. What is their starting point? Are we talking about the woman who is wants to become a mom or has just become a mom and kind of looking at her business or her career, wanting to leave her 9 to 5 and maybe have her own business to get the time freedom, because a lot of women come to me for this. That's a very common motivation, I would say. Or what is the average, like, give me some examples of the clients who come to you and say, Lauren, help me.
Yeah, so it really is, the big commonality is women who just care about their life alongside their business as well. There's the huge commonality between every single person. And really it does tend to be that woman who has built the good business and, you know, everything is functioning. She's making income from this. It's going pretty good, but she doesn't know how she can take this to great without it just sucking up even more of her time, because she is a solopreneur. She's the one who is running the business. And, you know, she's probably already working a pretty decent number of hours, but it's really looking like we're almost having this trade-off of, if I want more results in my business, if I want more income, more growth, more clients, that equals less life for me. And I've got to almost sacrifice one for the other. And then the work we do is, okay, how can you not do that? How can we actually continue to really fuel your life with the business, but still grow the business at the same time? Because I think so many solopreneurs really get trapped in that cycle where we're working the full-time 9 to 5 hours, and we're getting a certain amount of income from that. But then when we're thinking, great, I'd love to grow my income next year, how do we do that? You know, I could work till 7 p.m. every day, but do I want to work till 7 p.m. every day? Probably not. And as you said, a lot of my clients are the people who are, you know, they're mums, they're traveling, they just have a lot of hobbies, they just have a lot of fullness in their life essentially, and they want to really continue having really life be a priority for them. And also they're very ambitious, so they want to have the business growth too. So it's how do we do both of these things essentially without needing to sacrifice one for the other.
And the way you do this is you're concentrating on one core offer within the business, aren't you? And I know the conversations we had before, you've done what we all done, like have multiple offers and do the group courses and the one-to-ones and the little short experiences until you actually just focused on one-to-one work, because the work you're doing is actually quite comprehensive and quite in-depth with the women, and I can really relate to this, and one-to-one work really can give you this. But let's talk about that transition period. Let's talk about how did it truthfully and authentically look like, because I know how it looks like, stepping away from what is supposed to be working and what is also working, and actually taking the leap and putting all your faith in yourself. How did that look like for you?
Yeah, such a good question. So it was really funny because it was actually after my granddad had passed away and I suddenly had all this time open up. I thought, great, now I can work 8 hours a day on the business. Brilliant. I can really throw myself into this. And I'm a very ambitious driven person. So I loved the idea that I could really just be, hustling away on this, really working. And then I started doing that. And then I kind of realized, oh, I've created my worst nightmare. And I'd accidentally created the business where, as you said, I had 5 different offers. I've got all of the different things. I've got, my calendar was so meticulously planned because I had a launch week this week. Next week I was planning for the next launch. Then I was teasing for the next launch. Then I had this event going on. And the calendar just felt like it was so, nothing could move almost. It was don't touch anything or everything is going to fall apart in this. And I think it's so easy to get into that place because we think almost, okay, to grow the business, I need to add more in, and I need to, I need a new program, I need a new tier, I need this new launch, I need this new masterclass in. And we kind of just build until we realize that we are really at capacity and we're kind of just about holding all this together with duct tape essentially. And I really got to that place where I had realized it was maybe about 4 months after my granddad had passed away. I'd built up all the things. I had done 2 rounds of a group program and it was going really well. I had a couple of women from that program who already wanted to join the 3rd round as well. And I was really left making this decision of, okay, I could continue the 3rd round of the group program. I already had 2 women who wanted to jump into this. I had the course as well, which I was planning on relaunching in a couple months. And I was really looking at everything going, okay, I don't know how this is going to work with my life anymore, because the last few months I had been really throwing myself into business, and really business had been the full thing on my mind 24/7 essentially. But I was also knowing that I really wanted to start traveling. I hadn't left the country in a while. I had really always wanted to do these, 1 month trip abroad where it's, co-working, co-living together. I'd love the idea of that, but I didn't know how that would work alongside the really busy business that I then created for myself. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take that step back, and what is the offer I really want to build? And I knew it was one-to-one. At the time, I think I only had about 1 client inside of one-to-one. So it was a very ballsy decision, to be honest.
You all start with 1.
Yeah, 100%. But, it was almost easier to pick the group program or to pick the calls. But one-to-one, I knew that I just love that depth of working with people. I love that relationship building. I love really being able to get into the weeds with them and really being able to dive into them and their business and really get to know them over years. So I made the decision that I was going to be closing down that group program. I was not going to be promoting the course anymore. It still does exist somewhere on the internet, but it's not publicly available, I kind of closed all those things. I stopped doing the live masterclasses, everything like that. And I decided I was going to put all my energy into one-to-one. And that decision really came from, again, that kind of life first approach of realizing that actually, is this business in its current format and its current model actually going to work for my life in a year's time, in 5 years' time? And I was looking at it and going, probably not. And it's really easy for me to kick the can down the road and make this decision later and, just do the next round of the group program, just do 1 more round, just launch the course again and see what happens. And I realized that actually, now is almost the easiest time for me to do that, because yes, I can make that decision in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. But actually, if I want to be traveling in 6 months, I know that, okay, if I make that decision now and really put all my energy into the one-to-one, I can build that up over the next 6 months. And then I can actually be where I want to be so much sooner as well.
And I also think, and this is a mistake I certainly have made, and a lot of people are making, is we're trying to follow a certain path we think we should be following, or we're taking other people as inspiration who have done something similar or are at the point where we are so desperately wanting to get to, and thinking we have to do X, Y, Z. And what we're forgetting is, like, how do we actually want to live our life? How do we actually want our life to look like in 2, 3, 5 years down the line? And the position I'm in now, my daughter's older, so obviously back in the days my life was completely different, because I had to worry about school runs and being in a certain location and being stable in terms of being able to be at home in the evening. Now I can travel so much more, so it becomes natural to me to adjust my business to the ability to have a different kind of freedom. But a lot of us forget to think about this. A lot of us chasing a short-term goal, and that maybe is the revenue or whatever it is, or this extra time we're getting, maybe the extra 2 hours in the morning I'm having if I do X, Y, Z. But actually thinking about, is this really what I need to get to where I want to get to? Most of us don't do.
Yeah.
Until we are forced to do that. So actually for you, from the sounds of it, always having this approach and always having this in the back of your mind, I find is quite remarkable.
Yeah, I think, as you said, we almost wait until we absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And almost, I think we kind of give ourselves this idea of, freedom and the life we're really wanting as kind of a carrot on a stick to ourselves. We tell ourselves, it's going to be so close. As soon as I have hit this income number, as soon as I have launched this course, as soon as I have got this group up and running, then I'm going to be able to have this life. Then I can work these hours. Then I can do this. And it really is a carrot on the stick for ourselves, because realistically, we never get there. The business just keeps getting busier. We keep working more hours. We keep having the next goal and the next thing to work towards, which is great because we're all ambitious people. But I think it's really important to actually think about how am I, structuring the business and running things right now to create that life that I'm actually wanting, because it's so easy to think that I'm going to hit, 10K months, and then by default, I'm going to suddenly have the life I want and suddenly have this freedom. But it doesn't just appear, it's going to be created, and you need to actually start creating that. And the easiest thing to do is to start creating that right now, because then it comes really easy. It just becomes natural. Because again, like the fact that I had almost such a weird start to my business where I'd simplified everything so much early on, people were so confused by the fact that I, was able to work 1 hour a day and I had several clients, and they didn't understand how that looked. And it was just because I was put in that position where I really needed to operate in that way that I then learned that I even could run my business like that, and then have been able to help so many clients actually do the same and really simplify what it takes to actually run their business and to hit income goals and sign clients and all those things. But really actually getting to that place where you can actually think about the lifestyle that you're wanting, think about how you're wanting your life to look, and build the business around that instead of just waiting for the lifestyle to be this end goal. That is really, I think, a shift we all need to be thinking about.
But again, I think for you, this came from the point of urgency of the situation you've been put in. And all of us, especially in the coaching industry, we're coming from what I always like to call a great place of pain. This is where our motivation, our missions, our visions kind of originate from. And I think it's so important to communicate those things more, because what you're talking about is, I think, part of the fundamentals of everyone's lives should be, especially when you're thinking about entering entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is not easy. It's not for everyone. It's not the glamorous things you see online. And most people don't talk about this. So actually having you as a guest today is, I feel really honored, because I think this is a conversation we need to have much more often. So I know that pretty much every woman who's listening to this episode today will be in some sort of situation of not knowing where to go next, will be in the situation where they're feeling like they're treading waters and not really progressing, working incredibly hard. Every woman I know in business works incredibly hard, works more harder than anyone else usually in a normal employment job. But they're still not getting to the next step. It's still that, what am I supposed to be doing next? I can't give more. And the juggle of combining work, my commitment to my business, to my passion, and home life, however that may look like. And you don't have to be a mum for this. You just said you have a boyfriend, so there's a commitment to your relationship. There's a commitment to our family, our parents, and our friends. Like, it doesn't matter how that commitment looks like. But I feel like combining this is a struggle for most people. So whoever's listening today, if you could give them 3 top tips on kind of where to start, or some tips on how to get started on trying to get to that point where they're looking at their business from the lens of, does this business actually give me the life I so deeply desire?
Yeah, great question. I think you really need to, first of all, be really honest with yourself. And I think this is the hardest part of it. It's so easy to almost kid yourself and tell yourself, it's okay, I can manage for now. I know I know this is kind of burning me out, but it's okay. We can do another 6 months of this. And we kind of just keep telling ourselves this. I think really taking an honest look of just, if I was to take a step back, what is the life I'm actually wanting to create, and what in my business is helping towards that, and what is kind of pulling me away from that, what is actually taking away. And I think not looking at that from the perspective of, I don't need to have the answers right now of how do I shift this? And okay, if I can see that this certain offer or this certain model really isn't working for me anymore, we don't need to know yet how do we shift that, but really just looking at what is and what isn't working and being really, really honest with yourself. even if it's hard, even if you can, as I got to that place of saying, oh my gosh, okay, all of these offers really do not work for me. I really need to just focus in and simplify this. And, making the leap to really focusing on one offer was really, really scary. And also I knew that this was the decision that actually would support the life that I was really wanting to create. So I think really getting honest with yourself, first of all, no matter if you like the answer or not, you probably won't like the answer to some things, but just getting really, really real about that. And then I think actually making a plan for what is that going to look like for making that shift. Because again, once we know the answer, it's really easy for us to kind of know it, but kind of ignore it and push it into the background. But what does that actually look like to make that shift? Again, for me, it was, okay, I'm going to really focus all in on one-to-one. And what if I put all my time and energy into that? What if everything in my business was leading towards one-to-one? What would that look like? How would I then structure my marketing? How would I then structure sales? What would this actually look like for my business? And I got really, really clear on just creating a game plan. And then I think it is really just kind of pulling the Band-Aid off, pulling the plaster off, and really just making that decision. And I think it's, there's a lot of moments in your life which can be that kind of decision moment where it suddenly becomes easy to make a decision. For me, again, it was, a very hard moment with my granddad where it was really easy for me to suddenly decide, okay, I need to do this in 1 hour a day. I'm not going to spend 8 hours a day. I'm not going to spend 3 hours messing around with a Canva graphic. Like, there are too many more important things where my time could be going right now. And I think it really is just almost we get to pick the moment. We don't need to wait for something like that for it to be, oh my gosh, everything feels like it really needs to shift. So I have to change everything right now. You can choose tomorrow to be the moment. We can choose next week to be the moment. But I think really just, getting clear on and real and honest with yourself on what does that actually look like? What needs to change? How is it going to change? And then really just actually making the decision and actually implementing that before we get to the place of the universe is kind of forcing me into that. Because I think the universe very much nudges you and kind of pushes you in the right direction. And then if we keep ignoring the nudges, it's going to shove you at some point. So we can kind of do it before that point and really, just actually make that decision before. Because for me, for example, with shifting towards one-to-one, like I knew I wanted to travel. I could have very easily said, okay, I'm just going to go and travel and see what happens with this. And then got to a place where I suddenly need to drop everything because I'm not able to make both of these things work together. But I knew beforehand, okay, I just need to go for this and really make that leap. And then I can do the travel thing after. I know it's going to work out because it is really built for that life, essentially.
So that all comes back to the clarity piece, which for me, everything starts with. You need to be very clear on like what you actually want and what it takes to get this desire of your filled. But this also, when you say you just need to make the decision, it's very easily said. But I feel like making actually a decision is the hardest thing for most people, because making a decision comes with so many ripple effects. It becomes one of the biggest ripple effects is visibility. It makes people around you see you differently. It makes people around you think about you differently. And I don't care what anyone says. We do care. Everyone cares about what people around them think or say, obviously to different levels. And I can truly say, I don't care that much. And I always say, if you talk about me, great, at least I'm still interesting. But so you find your ways, or you get to the point where it doesn't affect your decision making to the extent where you're holding yourself back. But I also know it's a huge skill to learn. It's a very difficult road to go down for most people. You are incredibly confident. You're incredibly clear on what you want and what you don't want, what you're tolerating, what you don't tolerate for your own life. And from the sounds of it, always have been. But I think that's very unusual. Extremely unusual. So this whole kind of making a decision and the repercussion of making the decision, I would like to imagine that a lot of your clients really struggle with. So how do you help them through this?
I think one of the biggest things, and I think especially when it comes to business, is I always say that business is hard, but it's simple. And I think this is a huge distinction which people really, really struggle with of, yes, we know that there's going to be hard work in business, and also we can really make this simple for you. We know what we need to do a lot of the times. We know what's going to work. We know what we can do more of. It's kind of simple when we look at business. It's just really find the person who needs the thing I have, offer them that thing, give them that service. Like, it's very, very simple when we break it down. So I think one of the biggest things is really actually finding how can I just kind of simplify this decision down. And I think it sometimes, as you said, feels like a really big thing. It feels like I'm doing a 180 with my life. It feels like everything needs to change overnight. But I think actually almost looking at how can I just make this simpler for myself is the question that I would be asking there. So for example, with me, yes, it was a really big shift if you kind of zoom out looking at, okay, I'm going to shift from all of these offers to having one offer. And also at the same time, I had made that simple for myself because I'd mapped out, okay, how were clients going to be coming into this? I'd really spent some time figuring out, okay, what were sales going to look like for me now? What was marketing going to look like? How was I going to be bringing these clients? And just really almost giving myself more confidence around that decision. So it wasn't a big leap in the dark, essentially. So I think that's the big scary part for a lot of us is we look at these decisions and it feels like this kind of just take a leap and hope something will catch you, build the parachute on the way down. And I'm not a fan of that because I think it's not very realistic with life a lot of the time. We can't just kind of just go for it and see what will happen. So I think actually building, again, like looking at business and realizing that business is kind of simple. Yes, we need to work hard at it, but it's kind of simple fundamentally, and figuring out, okay, how is this going to look for me? What am I actually going to be doing? What do I need to shift? How are the clients going to be coming in through this offer? Let's create multiple different sales pathways for how they're actually going to be coming in. So I can, I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. It's not feeling like a risky decision anymore. It feels like I can actually look at my plan and say, okay, this kind of makes sense. Like I can see how this would work. I think that's where you can get to the place where it's almost edging your toe over the line of the decision until it does actually feel really comfortable for you to just take that step and it doesn't feel like such a big deal.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But you are incredibly good in what you're doing, but who is Lauren outside of the business? Yeah. Because being the way you are and teaching women what you're teaching them, it requires a lot of confidence, which you clearly have. But I bet you also hit brick walls along the way. I bet you also had moments. Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, shit, I can't do this?
Yeah.
This idea I had. But I had a holy shit moment the other week because I have a really big plan and I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning and I'm thinking, shit, who the hell do I think I am? I can't do that. Yeah. I mean, I got myself together very quickly. However, it does happen for all of us. So it does happen for Lauren as well, doesn't it? So give me an example if you can, or how do you move through those times?
Yeah, I love that. I think it's, it's so easy to think that's almost a bad sign of something feels really edgy. It feels that bit outside of my comfort zone. So that's a bad thing. I should kind of move away from that because it doesn't feel comfortable. I feel like I've really just trained my brain to realize that those are the things I need to be leaning into. And anything that feels that bit edgy, that feels that kind of really edge of my comfort zone, I know I need to do that. My job is really just how can I almost have that moment of, oh my gosh, this feels really new, this feels really scary, and move through that as quick as possible. Of this not being I feel that for a week, instead it's I feel it for an hour maybe, and I'm just kind of sitting in that feeling of, okay, this feels really big, this feels really edgy, okay, and I get to do the thing now. And I think almost it comes with, for me, I would say just really, just practicing doing some more of those things, because I think it's so easy in business, especially, to really get in our comfort zone of this is how I do things. This is what I feel comfortable with. I don't do these things. I show up in this way. I feel comfortable, showing this much of myself, like even small levels. And we've kind of drawn a little barrier around ourselves, but, it's like that thing where we've seen, where there's ants and they draw the mark around the circle and the ants will never leave the circle. They could leave the circle, but they never will. I think we kind of do that to ourselves with a lot of areas of business. If we tell ourselves that, this is just what I do, this is what I'm comfortable with. But I think actually the more we do those tiny things that feel a little bit edgy and feel a little bit scary, the more it kind of just becomes a muscle that we can just lean into. And for me, like, that's why I love going to the gym. Like, I love going to the gym a lot. Outside of that, I've been pretty consistent for the last couple of years since I first went. I remember the first time going, feeling so terrified walking in there, thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing. Is everyone watching me? But the more that I've really done that, I think that's helped with building the mental muscle of just, okay, we do the scary thing. And for me, for example, that's always been a, thing throughout my life, really. Like, I remember when I was at university, going for an opportunity where it was work at Walt Disney World over the summer. And it sounded absolutely ridiculous because most people over the summer were just, holidaying in Europe or doing some work experience or something. But the idea that I could work in Walt Disney World in Florida for 3 months over the summer sounded really cool. So I went for that and ended up doing that over the summer. And yeah, I think just really building that muscle of almost doing the crazy stuff of the opportunity comes up and I'm like, yes, let's go for this. And, even a really recent example, when this podcast opportunity came up, for example, and I remember seeing about that and thinking, oh, I haven't done a, in-person podcast before. Like, this is very new for me, and thinking feels really exciting. And it's a little bit edgy, And I remember, for example, even seeing that, the day that we're recording this, like, it's my granddad's birthday. So it's a really just significant day. And I thought, okay, we're going to go for that, especially seeing the date of it. I was like, we're going to go for this. We're going to do it. But yeah, I think really just those small moments of just finding the edge and actively trying to push it and trying to see that as the area of growth, because that really is, it's so easy for us to, as you said, getting that stuck place of we're kind of making the same money, we're doing the same things, and we feel like we're not necessarily stagnant, but we're just kind of trotting along, like things are going okay, they're going good. But I think really the exceptional growth, like the really crazy moments, happen from meeting those edges. And for me, for example, in that very first year of my business, when I had switched over to doing one-to-one, I was, how old was I? I was 22 at the time, and I had almost 10K cash a month at 22, which felt absolutely crazy to me at the time. But that was really because I had completely pushed the edges. I honestly was not available for this not working out with the one-to-one switch, and I just really went for it, and I just fully gave my all for it and was pushing those edges and doing the uncomfortable stuff really every single day. Every day felt a little bit uncomfortable, but I was really actively trying to be aware of what were those parts that felt really edgy for me, and just, can I push that a little bit today? Can I lean into that? It feels scary to go on Instagram Live. Okay, we're hitting live. We're going and doing that every single week, for example, and just doing the scary things in small ways makes it so much easier that then when the bigger scary things come up and they're feeling a little bit more edgy, it makes it easier to say yes to those things then, I think.
It's because you're in this momentum piece already. And I think it's very important to say that we need to start doing those edgy things outside of business as well.
Yes.
Like, we're all speaking about getting ourselves in the room and being in expansive environments and challenging ourselves. And that is all great. And that there's a time and a place and it's needed for sure. But I definitely believe if you don't challenge yourself and don't really put yourself outside of your business into those situations, you will never expand in your business the way you potentially could. Because you're only identifying yourself with the business and you don't really work on your own identity outside of this. Like, who is Lauren and who is Katy outside of their business? And B, the greatest expansion pieces I personally experienced is conversations outside of my business, where it wasn't an agenda, so to speak, where we weren't speaking about a business, I'm losing my words, like a business project or something, where we were speaking just about life and how we see things. Those were I would say, those are generally the biggest moments which make me think, oh yes, I can do that.
Yeah, I think for me, there's been so many big ones. I think especially, obviously, travel is a huge thing for me. And I think obviously learning to balance that and the business has been a big thing, but also just making the kind of bigger, scary decisions there. Like, for example, a couple years ago, I decided I'm not a fan of winter in the UK. So I decided that, okay, we're going to go to Asia. And I was there for 2.5 months, I think it was. I was in Thailand and in Bali, and it felt so far away. I'd never been that far away from home before. And it was, it felt kind of like a big, scary decision saying that I'm going to be away for that long as well. Also with the time zones, how's that going to work with family and friends back home and staying in touch with them and running the business? And I went for that, and that just felt really, edgy at the time, but it felt so exciting being able to do something like that. And just taking a lot of those different decisions. Also going to the gym, like all those things that just feel a little bit edgy. And I feel like I've always just really challenged myself there. For example, when I was younger as well, when I was university and late school years as well, one of my favorite things to do each year was they had a National Novel Writing Month in November, which was challenged to write a whole novel in a month. So I did that for I think 3 years in a row, just for fun, essentially, because I love a good challenge. Just because I love a good challenge, and I always loved writing. But I think really just small things of just outside of the business, as you said, kind of growing your life, because I think that is also a really important conversation, because it's so easy for business to just take over our every single thought, take over our lives, but actually thinking, how do I want to have a really full life outside the business? For example, one of my clients, she is the most hobby person I've ever met in my life. She has so many damn hobbies, and she's constantly coming up with new things to do. And, you know, she's constantly out hiking on a Thursday and out exploring new cafes. And she just has so much life outside of her business. And I think it's so beautiful being able to see her grow her business and also just have such a ridiculous amount of life outside of her business. And I think that is something where, yes, she's equally as focused on the business side, but she's also really focused on the life side, and she has goals there, and she's really working on things there. And I think it's almost one of those things where it's so easy for us to view the life and the business as kind of competing with each other of, okay, what's going to get more of my attention and energy, and which one am I trading for the other at the moment in this season? But actually, when you can see it as almost the more full life I have, the more full my business gets to be, it's so powerful, because really they do bounce off each other, and they just improve how you're feeling as a human and how you're showing up for your business as well. The energy you have, the life you have, and also the stories you're able to tell as well inside of your business. I think really being able to see them as not in competition with each other, but seeing them as, how do these two things come together? And actually, the more I fill my cup in one area, it allows me to fill my cup in the other one too.
I completely agree. And I think this is the perfect way to end this episode. Yeah. But I'm not going to let you get away with without my last question. So if you could give Lauren, younger version of Lauren, one particular piece of advice within business, what would that be?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I was thinking about that one because I think there's so many pieces, and I think I was obviously very young when I started this. I was 21 when I kind of started this. I think the biggest thing that I would almost say is just to really, I know we've been talking about, you know, pushing the edges and taking the risks, but I think just really go for it all out, I think is the thing. And as cheesy as that sounds, really find constantly every single day those edges and just push them. Because in the seasons where I have been really leaning into that, the growth has been exceptional. It's been insane, off the charts. And I think so many of us are, you know, we're really wanting these really exceptional lives and these really exceptional businesses and these incredible results. And also, this is where you're going to find it. It's that edge. It's that thing that feels really uncomfortable to do. It's that thing that feels like, I couldn't do that, or maybe when I'm more qualified, and really just pushing those constantly. That has been the thing that has led to all the biggest growth seasons for me. And also, I can still see opportunities where I did pull back in moments, where there were seasons where, you know, I wasn't really pushing that as much. And I think there's always that edge you can push, and your job is just to find that constantly in business and continuously push that, because as soon as that has now become comfortable, there's a different edge for you. And we need to just constantly be finding those edges and really leaning into them, essentially, rather than running away from them.
That's such a great piece of advice. Thank you so much for coming on the Unshakeable Talks.
Thank you for having me.
And I also would like to say a big happy birthday to your granddad.
Thank you.
Because he's been such a big part of your story.
Huge.
And it's his birthday today when we record. So happy birthday to your birthday.
Thank
you very much. If you've been feeling stuck or disconnected from the woman behind your business, this is your sign. The Identity Shakeup is my new free audio, a short, powerful reset to help you to get clear on the person who you've become and the person your business needs next. Head to the link in the show notes to access it today.